Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're just joining me for the first time, hi, my name is Angelfish, pronouns they, them, and I am here with my thoughts on Monster High 2, the movie which just aired tonight on Nickelodeon at the time I'm recording this, which is October 5th, 2023. Woo! The movie has not even been out for a full 24 hours and already I have a lot of thoughts, so let's just get into them. I think what I'm going to do for this movie is go over the things that I liked about this movie and the things that I didn't like. Um, and I will also give a brief synopsis at the end using dolls as puppets, because I think it would be fun. So, the things that I liked about this movie, the costuming for Draculaura felt very referential to the dolls, both of G1 and G3. She has some looks that feel like Monster Ball. She has some looks that feel like Holiday Draculaura from G1. She has some looks that feel like Skulltimate Secrets, some that are kind of a blend of G1 and 3. Overall, I think she had the best costuming of this movie once again. Frankie and Laguna also had really cute costuming in this movie. I think they have my second favorite outfits. Laguna in particular has this one mesh outfit that honestly is kind of like, this restyle is of her not G1, her first movie outfit top that I made myself, but like the outfit that I found really cute for Laguna in this movie was basically these shorts and fishnets with a teal tube top under a black mesh shirt that was about this length, that was like little stoned in little pearls, and she had her hair in a half up, half down ponytail with a little bit of like, fringe, and then her signature G3 dolls little pearl clips in them. And I thought that that look was adorable and probably the prettiest outfit that Laguna has in that entire movie. Speaking of Laguna, might as well get it out of the way. One of the things that I really liked about this movie was that she actually got to do things. While she doesn't particularly like join the group on their journey to the human world, she does actually do some of the plot relevant things while they are at Monster High and helps where she can. So I appreciate them actually finding something for her to do. She has some really funny moments that I just absolutely adored. And Frankie, they obviously ate their outfits like literally so good, on par with their costuming from the first movie. Frankie was adorable. I love them. They were about equal in writing to the first movie, to me at least. Although I feel like in some scenes they took a back seat where they shouldn't have, which, I mean, that's going to be in my negative notes, and I'll delve into that in the things I didn't quite like section, but overall, they were, again, some positives of this movie. Now, next is Claudine's, like, songs. The songs that Claudine got to sing in this movie, absolutely amazing. Loved them. Do I love them more than, like, Coming Out of the Dark or any of the songs from the first movie? Not really. I'm gonna get into that later, but she was a powerhouse singer in this movie when, in some songs, I didn't expect her to be. I thought this movie was mostly going to be about Draculaura, but it was about both of them and their friendship, which was actually really sweet. So, still keeping in mind that Claudine is the main character of G3. Love that. I loved Toralai's introduction into the live-action movie canon in this movie. That was certainly a redundant sentence, but you get what I mean. She stole the show in her few moments of screen time. Yes, few moments. She spends about most of the second act of this movie in the background, which I will talk about later. But when she is doing stuff on screen, she is great, and I love her to bits. Also, her queer coding, it's a little minimal, but it's definitely there, and after talking with some of my friends after watching the movie, I'm glad I'm not the only person that picked up on that. It definitely felt a little fruity, so, I like that. I love that for Toralei. And Claudine. I almost knocked over one of my dolls, sorry. Next is Cleo. She actually did things in this movie compared to the first one. In the first movie, Cleo was the I'm gonna make fun of Frankie, and then I'm gonna tell on Draculaura for being a witch, and then I'm gonna go get help because Komos is trying to kill all of my classmates at the end. Like, that was all that Cleo did in the first movie, whereas in this movie, I like that she actually did a lot more. She interacted with the ghouls more. She was on friendlier terms with Frankie and Draculaura and like Claudine specifically. She still had like cute little BFF moments with Laguna, one in particular where she's like, Laguna, no, please don't eat them. I just need you to like tell me if someone's walking down the hallway. Like, that was pretty funny. I liked that. Now, Cleo's outfits we'll talk about later, but she actually got to do things in this movie, so I liked that. Now for the things that I don't know how to feel about. This is a smaller section in this video where I am going to just very briefly go over some of the things in this movie. Mainly Gulia and Abby's absence from both the plot and just overall most of the scenes. I don't know if they couldn't get Gulia and Abby's actresses for enough of the movie, but they really took a back seat in this movie, which is kind of shocking considering the fact that Abby, as a secondary character, did a lot more in the first movie than Laguna did. And then in this movie, she had, I think, one or two lines and was just gone until the end of the movie, basically. Like, we did not see her after the first 10 to 15 minutes of this movie. And Gulia, we did see physically on camera a lot more, but also, like Abby, she had a few lines at the start, and then we just did not see her until that final dance number. Which kind of sucks. They're kind of fan favorite characters, so I was hoping for a little bit more, but oh well. There were also a new character named Demi that we got in this movie, and she was adorable. She was like a half human, half phantom ghost. She can walk through walls, but only when she's excited. She was adorable. She seemed to make friends with like the main group of ghouls, particularly Claudine, but like she also didn't really do much in this movie. Demi, as a new character, only existed to show that Claudine was popular with half human, half monsters, which, I mean, she served her purpose, but also I would have liked to see her a little bit more. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to improve that. Just like she didn't do a lot, okay? She didn't do a lot. That's why I'm mentioning her. And then also in the section of I don't know how to feel is Ellis, the other new character. Now this video obviously does contain spoilers, but Ellis is a human witch, and while that is plot important, Ellis spends a lot of time as a character just silent. Speak only if you're spoken to, kind of silent. After they leave Monster High and go to the human world, like Ellis could have spoken more. I think that's my one note for him. He bit his tongue, and while in some scenes like it made sense for his character and the relationships he had with the other people on screen, it was just kind of like, okay, I need that little extra push. I know this is a made for TV movie, but also other made for TV movies have given that little extra push for characters before. It doesn't even have to be like a huge story arc, just to complete his mini arc, because he does have a mini arc. He was important enough to have a mini arc. He could have had just one additional line of dialogue to help bring that a little bit more full circle. Now on to the things that I absolutely did not like. 1, Cleo's costuming in the movie. Okay, moving on. Number 2, Claudine and Deuce are dating at the start of this movie. They are a couple. They call them Cluse, which is canon, but that's like the wrong name because the fandom used Cluse to refer to Cleo and Deuce or Claude and Deuce. It mostly is for Cleo and Deuce, but like it's the wrong Cluse. First of all, and I'm not saying that G3 Deuce needs to be with Cleo either. Get that notion out of your head, because I don't think she does. But it doesn't make sense for their characters. But it's just kind of like, okay, it's a little weird to me because they had minimal chemistry in the first movie. I feel like most of the chemistry on screen was not really in character for them. It was mostly just their actors having good chemistry on set, which isn't bad, but it's also just kind of like, it does not make sense for these two characters to be together, especially knowing certain things that are down the road for Claudine that we have already started to get little hints at in the animated series, which again, I know that the G3 live action movies have a separate canon from the cartoon, but to a certain point, they need to start following a little bit more in line with what the cartoon is doing, because it's starting to come across as not tone deaf, that's not the right word for it, but out of touch with what else is going on in the franchise. And Claudine and Deuce being a couple is one of those things where it's like, it just does not make sense for the characters. You can't make me invest in this relationship because there is not a relationship to begin with. They are good as friends, but don't try to push that they are anything more because it's not working, and something needed to happen in the writers room to just be all like, okay, yeah, this isn't working, this wasn't received well by fans, we can't make people believe this because it's not believable really to anybody over the age of 7. I honestly want to say, because I have younger cousins that like Monster High. They didn't buy their relationship in their first movie. I can't imagine what their reaction to the sequel is going to be. If they're going to be like, oh, they got together, why? That's probably what it's going to be. But it's like, just, it doesn't make sense, okay? It does not make sense to me. Thing I didn't like in this movie, Deuce's costuming, it was just kind of meh. It wasn't bad. Honestly, I should have included Deuce's costuming in the I don't know how to feel section, but also it just felt unremarkably boring. And that is the word I'm going to use for Deuce's costuming in this movie, because it was boring. Like, sure, Heath wore the same exact outfit that he wore in the first movie, but compared to Deuce, whose outfits looked, I mean, silhouette wise, very similar to the first movie, but color palette wise, dull and not at all Gorgony. I don't know what happened. He lost his color palette for the movie. It was weird. Also, they put Claudine in a lot of green in this movie, which isn't bad. It can work, but like they did it only and I know this is probably the reason why Claudine wore a lot of green in this movie, is to be like, oh, Claudine and Deuce are dating. They're a couple now. Ew. That's a good reason to dress people in similar colors if you're doing a stage production, but this is a TV movie. Ditch that corny ass shit. And now for the recap of the movie, now that I have given my thoughts on it. My final thoughts, anyway, before we actually get into the recap. I suppose I should do that first. My final thoughts on the movie, and if this is where you want to leave, go for it. You don't have to watch the second half of this movie video. My final thoughts on this movie is I would give it about an 8.5 out of 10. It's like a Disney Channel movie, and this is Nickelodeon's first time really getting a franchise that they can do that with. So, they're learning. I think we all can pick up on that. A lot of the effects were better. The costuming overall, some characters aside, was better, more enjoyable. Um, like 8 out of 10 for that alone. And also for letting some of the secondary characters actually do stuff and feel like they were present in the film. Aside from, again, Gulia and Abby not getting to do a single thing in this movie. So yeah, final thoughts, 8 out of 10. It was pretty fun. It's kind of a downer though. In some sense, like, yeah, there's a lot of emotional scenes in this movie. That are meant to be emotional, but it was definitely like at sometimes that sort of downer energy did, and I bumped a few points off for that, make it feel a little cornier than a TV movie should. And again, like, yes, it's a TV movie, it's gonna be campy, it's gonna be corny, it's for kids, it's for fun. But also, the fun movie for fun should be fun and have some moments that are fun. And sometimes this movie got to a place where I was like, okay, this is just sad. This isn't like sad because of emotions on screen, but like this is just sad because of sad, for the sake of sadness. With that out of the way, time for the recap. We open the movie with Draculaura hosting a back-to-school end-of-summer party at her house. Dracula is there. He's mostly on the phone with his relatives for the opening number, which is My Heart Goes Boom, Boom, Boom. That is a very lengthy name for a song, but I digress. And it's just sort of this fun, getting back into the world sort of scene, where Draculaura's like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see everybody. If Claudine's late, I'm going to beat her ass, though. Shouldn't say it exactly like that, but that's kind of the energy she has. Deuce is there with Heath. They're hanging out on the couch. Claudine shows up, and she's like, I brought a friend, and that friend is Frankie. Frankie, got upgrades over the summer, which is kind of important, but not at the same time. I mean, it is, in the sense that they can, do a lot of the stuff they do in the animated show now, like detach their arm on screen and have the magnetic pull. Laguna has this sort of funny moment where she shows up, and she's like all soaking wet, and Draculaura's like, Laguna, where have you been? And she's like, I was playing water polo with some of your dad's sea serpents out back, and I might have eaten one. And that's when she gets like the little Cinderella moment where Draculaura dries her off and gives her like the fish scale dress. Cleo's like, oh my gosh, Claudine's popular on TikTok now. This is weird. They call it EekTok, but whatever. Then we cut to the first day of school at Monster High, and like all of the main characters except for Abby and Gulia, because they are nowhere to be seen in this first scene, back at the school. Everybody's like hanging out at the Coffin Bean, and Cleo's beetles fly in, and they're like, oh my gosh, Toralai's back. And Tora's like, what up, bitches? I got attacked by witches when I was in France. And she has like kind of a cute moment with Frankie, where Frankie's like, oh my gosh, you're so confident and like approachable, but also kind of intimidating. And Toralai is like, oh, do you just kind of say everything that comes to mind? I like that. And Frankie's genuinely happy when they get complimented, so that's adorable. We get Abby and Gulia's probably last scene in this movie for like the majority of it, because we literally do not see them again after this, where Headmistress Bloodgood calls everybody to a back-to-school assembly in the Clauditorium, where she's like, this year we need to choose a new student prefect to represent the student body of Monster High, and I need the elementals to come up here and conduct the ritual with me. So Heath and Laguna go up on stage, and they do like the little ritual. Laguna is the water elemental, which is kind of interesting that she is considered a water elemental. I suppose it makes sense. I think in G3 she's supposed to be like half sea nymph or something. I'm honestly not sure what Laguna's monster makeup is in G3. I believe they said it in an early press release for G3, but it has been a bit, so bear with me. With the lore of the cartoon, I think Laguna might at least be somewhat related to a mermaid now, because she is Finnegan's cousin, but I digress. Yeah, she and Heath do like the little elemental thing. They place their hand on the doodad, and it calls the school spirits, like a seance, and the school spirits are like, I think Claudine Wolfe should run for the student prefect. And Claudine's like, yay! And then the school spirits are like, Claudine will run against Toralai. And Toralai's like, it's on! I'm gonna run against you. And so that's sort of like the subplot of the movie, I guess, if you can call it that. And Toralai's like, witches shouldn't be allowed at Monster High. And so Draculaura's like, damn, Toralai can't win. She's kind of a bitch. And so she and Claudine are like, okay, well then let's run our campaign based off of something that Toralai's campaign isn't. Toralai's campaign is, let's ban witchcraft. Our campaign will be the power of friendship, basically. I'm doing a terrible job of describing it, but that's basically what it is. Laura meets this new vampire that's like, hey, I'm Ellis. I also do witchcraft. And she's like, oh my gosh, we can be friends. And like, she kind of falls in love, but like not. It's sort of like the, oh my gosh, I have something in common, but like a 7-year-old will probably read it as they are falling in love sort of thing. So she has like a whole song about that. She learns how to clone herself from moss, which is important later. It's a surprise tool that'll help us later. Anyway, she's like, oh no, I'm late for curfew. And so she goes back to her dorm, where Frankie and Cleo are laying in bed in their dorm, and Frankie is trying to have a sincere conversation with Claudine, but Claudine is caught up with student prefect things with running, and so she's like constantly texting Cleo, and Frankie feels ignored, so they're like, okay, good night. And then 2 witches break into their dorm room, and right then Draculaura walks in, and she's like, what the hell? And the witches are like slowly approaching her coffin, but they were expecting her to be inside and she wasn't. And Claudine jumps in front of her and she's like, what the fuck are you doing in my room? Get the fuck out. And then Frankie freaks out and short circuits the entire school, which leads us into Toralei and Claudine's dance battle, where Toralei successfully bans witchcraft from Monster High, except not really. She's like, she's like, witches are bad, they're dangerous, and everybody starts to believe her. And Bloodgood is like, well, I have no choice but to temporarily ban witchcraft from Monster High again, which makes Draculaura all sad. And then she's like, Ellis, witchcraft just got banned at Monster High. I don't know what to do. And then Ellis is like, well, then now's the time for me to reveal myself. Turns out Ellis was actually a human this whole time, and he's like, my mom's the queen of the witches. Let's go talk to her. She wants to end the war between witches and vampires. And Draculaura is like, I'm sure this woman has my best interests at heart. I trust you. Let's go. And so they leave, and Draculaura makes the surprise tool that will help us later, aka the clone made out of moss, and she leaves it for Claudine and Frankie, who are like, what the fuck? Draculaura, where did you go? The scene where they go to the human world and get help from Claudine's dad, and the sunglasses are not a disguise scene. Yeah, we get that. And then it turns out that Draculaura has been taken to Herbalife for Witches, which is where the witch queen Zamara is, and she's like, I see you've met my son Ellis. I sent him as a messenger to Monster High. Surely I have no ulterior motives here. And Draculaura's like, again, surely you have my best interests at heart. I will speak at your witch conference so that we can have peace between witches and vampires. And Zamara's like, okay, I'll have like my little secretary show you to your room. And so she does. And we get to Draculaura's room, and Frankie and Claudine have found her, and Claudine's like, Draculaura, you gotta come back to Monster High. You know, Toralei's making a mess of things, and I need your help. I need you there with me. And Draculaura's like, I gotta do this. And they sing a whole song about friendship, and like, just insert a slightly sadder version of Sorry It's Over from Monster High Boo York, and you basically get the scene that was here. And Frankie and Claudine tearfully leave Draculaura in the human world, and she's like, okay, bye. And there's a thing where Draculaura gets her eye coffin back from Claudine, and Claudine's like, keep it on you this time. I was like, okay. They go back to Monster High, and Toralei and Claudine have to give speeches to for the prefect thing, and Toralei's like, witchcraft is bad. We should kill all witches. The only good witch is a dead witch. And Claudine is like, how about we don't, because we are also marginalized, and that would just not be great, to persecute other people the way we have been. Claudine's speech doesn't seem to win over the student body, so she's like, well, shit, I guess I better concede. Meanwhile, back in the human world, someone filmed Claudine's speech, and Draculaura is watching it on her eye coffin, and she's like, I've made a mistake. I've got to go back to Monster High. And so Ellis walks in right at that moment as she's packing up, and he's like, where are you going? And she's like, I gotta go back to my friends. They need me. And then Zamara's like, oh, my dear sweet summer child. No, this was actually just a ploy to kidnap you this whole time. See, I, as the Queen of Witches, have been researching this death curse to kill all vampires, and you are just what I need to conduct that. So, yeah, you're my prisoner now. I mean, you already were when you agreed to come here, but, like, now we're actually gonna put you in a cage made out of silver. So come along now, child. And that happens very quickly. So then back at Monster High, Claudine finds out from Cleo's scarabs that Draculaura is in trouble. So she's like, oh shit, we gotta go to the human world for real this time to get her back. And so she, Deuce, Frankie, and Heath, insert stock picture of Heath Burns here, are like, we're coming, Draculaura. And then Toralai's like, wait, I've dealt with witches before, I'm gonna help you. Which honestly felt a little rushed, but you know what, we're glad to have you, Toralai. And so our group of ghouls goes to the human world, back to Herbalife for witches, to kick some witch bitches in the stomach. And that is precisely what Toralai does, and Deuce does too. I'm pretty sure Deuce actually killed a woman, because the witch that was holding him at silver knife point got bit in the face by one of his snakes, and I'm pretty sure she's fucking dead now. They haul her off. It's like, oh my god, she got bit. And then Draculaura is in a cage, and Frankie and Claudine are like, oh my god, we gotta get her out. And she's in a trance because Zamara put her in a trance to recite the death curse against her will. And then Ellis finally has a moment of competency and is like holding his mom back with magic, while Frankie and Claudine try to break Draculaura out of her trance and out of the cage, but the cage is made of silver, so Claudine, in an effort to successfully get Draculaura out of the trance, actually fucking dies, and Frankie's like, oh no, my bestie! And we actually don't see what Draculaura does after that, really. We get like a few brief flashes of her going all WandaVision on Zamara, but what the movie decides to show us while that is happening is Claudine waking up in the spirit world and having like her life flash before her eyes of like her at a picnic with her besties in outfits from the first movie. And then the Grim Reaper shows up and he's like, Claudine, it's time for you to go. The dead must rest. And Claudine is like, I don't want to do that. I'm not ready. And he's like, you have to surrender. And then at that moment, she hears Frankie's voice, and she's like, you said surrender. That means there's a choice. Bye. And so she does. And that's kind of important. And she wakes back up, and everyone's like, everything's okay. Dracula's here. Draculaura's okay. She beat the shit out of all the witches because she was so mad that the silver killed you and that they imprisoned her and they betrayed her trust. So, like, she beat them to a pulp. And so that happens, and then they go back to Monster High, and Laguna is back, and like everybody else is back on screen, and they celebrate Draculaura's Sweet 1600, and then Deuce is like, I gotta go leave on a journey of self-discovery, and so he does. And they have the final song, and Toralai has like a queer-coded moment with Claudine that's like, we are were creatures, my dear. We both live under the same moon. That's what we share. And I'm summarizing very poorly, but it felt very gay. Then we get our little after credits scene to the outside of the school where Deuce is walking to the portal with his bag of stuff. He's ready to go on his journey of self-discovery. He's like, okay, well, this is it. Goodbye, Monster High. I'll see you around. And then the portal opens behind him, and a skeleton hand reaches out and like goes, move, bitch. It's death. And he's fucking pissed. The dead must rest, he says. And he hates that he got cheated out of taking Claudine's soul, and he goes and saunters off towards the school, and we cut to Frankie Frankie lying in bed, and then they wake up, and they're like, and that's where the movie ends. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye!